The alien girls drifted in their spaceship, lost in the cold, empty blackness of space. Their small, fragile ship had come to a stop hours ago, and no one on board knew how to make it move again. This was supposed to be a simple journey, a quiet ride to another star system. But now, the crew was facing something they never expected. A complete breakdown, with no idea how to fix it. The crew was a mix of young aliens from a peaceful, low-tech world. They hadn't trained for such a problem and had no clue where to begin with repairs. Most of them had only basic skills in piloting and communications. They had no real engineering knowledge. Even the oldest girl, Era, who acted as the group leader, couldn't figure out how to fix anything. The girls huddled together in the main control room, staring at the broken screens and flashing warning lights. Era tried to calm the others, but she was just as scared as they were. They didn't know how long they could survive without moving forward. Supplies wouldn't last forever, and their oxygen levels were already dropping faster than usual. "I don't understand it," Era muttered, pressing a button over and over. Nothing's responding. A young alien girl named Layla bit her lip, her big worried eyes glancing out the window at the stars. "What if no one finds us?" she whispered. "What if we're stuck here forever?" The other girls gasped and looked at each other with wide eyes. The fear grew among them, and some of the younger ones started to cry. But then an idea popped into one of their minds. "What if we found a Deathworlder?" whispered Myra, a quiet girl with green skin and large eyes. Her words caught everyone's attention. "A Deathworlder," Era repeated, frowning. "Those are just stories." "No, they're real," Myra insisted. "They come from a planet called Earth, and they're supposed to be really tough. They can fix anything, and they're not afraid of danger. I heard that they can survive even the harshest places. They're amazing." The other girls listened with fascination, though they were skeptical. They'd heard stories about Deathworlders, too, humans who were fearless and skilled, able to survive on a harsh, dangerous world. But they had never seen one themselves. To them, Deathworlders were almost like mythical heroes from another world. "What if we find one?" Leela asked, a spark of hope in her voice. "Maybe they could help us." Era sighed, trying to be the sensible leader. "And how would we find a Deathworlder out here in the middle of nowhere?" The girls fell silent, the spark of hope fading as quickly as it had come. It felt like their last chance had vanished. Just then, a small beep sounded on the control panel. The girls gasped and looked at the screen. A tiny blinking dot appeared, a ship approaching. It was still far away, but moving closer by the second. Could it be someone coming to help? Myra whispered, her eyes wide with hope. As the ship drew closer, its details became clear. It was a small, sturdy craft, nothing like the delicate and elegant ships of their own world. It looked strong, almost rugged, built to handle rough conditions. It was a design none of them had seen before. The ship finally stopped nearby, and a message came through on their communication panel. A deep, calm voice echoed in the control room. "This is Commander Alex Hayes, engineer from Earth. I've detected your distress signal. Do you need assistance?" The girls stared at each other, frozen in shock. Earth. That was the home planet of the Deathworlders. Their stories were real. A real Deathworlder was speaking to them. Era swallowed, trying to gather her courage. She pressed the button to reply, her voice trembling slightly. Thank you, Commander Hayes. We were stranded. Our ship won't move, and we don't know how to fix it." There was a pause, then the human replied, "Understood. Permission to board." The girls looked at each other, unsure. Should they let him on board? They were both excited and terrified. Humans were known for being both incredibly brave and a bit wild. Could they trust him? After a moment, Era nodded to the others. "We have no choice. He might be our only hope." With trembling fingers, Era pressed the button to open the airlock, allowing the human engineer onto their ship. As they waited, hearts pounding, They could hear the sound of footsteps echoing through the hallway. Commander Hayes appeared in the doorway, a tall, calm figure with a strong build and steady eyes. He looked at the damaged ship with a confident expression, like he had faced things like this before. The alien girls watched in awe as he began to inspect the control panels, barely hesitating as he examined the damage. It was as if nothing scared him at all. "I'll need to run a few tests," he said, his voice calm and reassuring. "Don't worry. I'll get your ship moving again." For the first time, the girls felt a true sense of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this Deathworlder could do what they never could. A human to the rescue. The alien girls stood nervously as Commander Alex Hayes, the human engineer, walked through the halls of their ship. He was calm and focused, scanning the damage with sharp eyes. The girls couldn't help but stare, both frightened and amazed. They had heard so many stories about humans, the Deathworlders, who could survive in places no one else dared to go. And now, here was a real Deathworlder right in front of them. The human was tall and strong with a serious expression. He wore a sturdy suit with tools attached, looking ready for any challenge. Era, the group's leader, felt a mix of relief and worry. Would he really help them? Or would he bring danger with him? "Thank you for coming," Era managed to say, trying to keep her voice steady. "Our ship, it just stopped moving, and none of us know how to fix it." Alex nodded, his face showing understanding. "I saw your distress signal. Don't worry. I'm here to help. I'll take a look at the main engine room first." The alien girls exchanged nervous glances, but followed him as he walked confidently toward the engine room. It was strange, following a human through their own ship, but he seemed to know exactly what to do. His confidence made them feel a little calmer, though they couldn't shake the feeling that they were in the presence of something powerful. Inside the engine room, Alex crouched down and examined the engine closely. He started to mutter to himself, making notes and checking different parts. The girls watched from a safe distance, too afraid to interrupt him but too curious to look away. "Your main energy converter is overheated," he said, mostly to himself. "And the stabilizers. They're barely holding up." One of the younger aliens, Leela, couldn't hold back her question. Is that bad?" Alex looked up and smiled slightly, his expression softening. "It's not good, but it's not impossible to fix," he assured her. "It'll take some time, though. You girls might want to get comfortable." The girls relaxed a little at his words. They began to feel that maybe, just maybe, they could trust this human. As he worked, he told them stories about his own experiences as an engineer, fixing all kinds of ships in dangerous situations. The way he talked about Earth, his death world, was both terrifying and fascinating. "We have storms that can tear down buildings, animals that can outrun us, and lands where even the plants can be deadly," Alex explained while tightening a bolt. "But humans learn to survive and thrive in all of it. That's why they call us Deathworlders." The girls gasped, their eyes wide with wonder. They had always imagined humans as fierce and wild, but hearing these stories directly from a human made them see him in a new way. They weren't just fierce. They were survivors. "So, nothing scares you?" Myra, the quiet one, asked. Alex chuckled, shaking his head. "Oh, I get scared. But fear is just part of being alive. The trick is to keep going, even when you're afraid." Era, who had been watching him closely, felt a surge of respect. Here was someone who faced danger as part of his everyday life. She wondered if they could ever be as brave as he was. As the hours passed, Alex worked tirelessly on the engine. He cleaned the damaged parts, replaced some wires, and adjusted the controls with a skill the girls had never seen before. Each time they tried to ask what he was doing, he explained it in simple words, breaking down complex ideas so they could understand. It was as if he wanted them to feel included, even in the repairs. The girls couldn't believe how focused he was, how calmly he handled each task. At one point, Leela brought him some water, shyly offering it to him. Alex accepted it with a grateful smile, making her blush. "Thank you, Leela," he said warmly. "It's always good to stay hydrated, especially when you're working hard." The girls felt more comfortable around him as he continued working. Despite being a Deathworlder, he was kind, respectful, and patient. His stories kept them entertained, making them laugh and gasp in surprise. For the first time, they felt truly hopeful that they might get out of this situation safely. Finally, after what felt like hours, Alex stood up and wiped his hands, a satisfied look on his face. "All right, I've done what I can," he announced. "The main systems should be stable for now. You'll be able to get back on course soon." The girls cheered, their voices filled with relief and excitement. They couldn't believe it. This human, a complete stranger, had just saved them from what could have been a terrible fate. Era stepped forward, her face full of gratitude. "Thank you, Commander Hayes," she said, bowing slightly. "You've done more than we could ever repay." Alex shrugged, giving her a friendly smile. "No need for thanks. Just doing my job." He paused, then added, "But if you ever need help again, remember, humans aren't as scary as they seem." With that, he gave them a small salute and prepared to return to his own ship. The alien girls watched as he left, feeling a mix of admiration and awe. This human, a so-called Deathworlder, had been brave, skilled, and above all, kind. They would never forget the lessons he taught them, not just about fixing a ship, but about facing fear and trusting others. As his ship disappeared into the distance, the girls knew they would carry his words with them forever. They were no longer just a crew of young aliens. They had been inspired by the strength of a Deathworlder. And they knew that, somehow, they would be braver for it. A surprising skill. The alien girls watched with newfound respect as Commander Alex Hayes, the human engineer, moved confidently around the spaceship. The ship's main systems were finally running, but there was still more to be done. Alex had noticed other small issues while fixing the engine: loose bolts, faulty wiring, and worn-out parts. The alien girls had no idea these problems even existed, but to Alex, they were obvious. His eyes seemed to catch every detail, no matter how small, as he inspected the ship carefully. Era, the leader of the crew, walked over to him, her eyes wide with curiosity. "Commander Hayes, how do you know all of this? You see things we didn't even notice." Alex gave her a friendly smile, his face calm and relaxed. "Years of practice, I guess. Back on Earth, we're taught to be ready for anything. Our world is full of danger, so we learn to solve problems quickly. It becomes second nature." The other girls gathered around, fascinated by his words. To them, the idea of living on a planet where danger was everywhere sounded like something from a nightmare. But to Alex, it was just life. Myra, one of the quieter aliens, finally spoke up. "So you're always fixing things like this on your world?" Alex chuckled. "Pretty much. We call it engineering. It's not just fixing things. It's about understanding how everything works, from the smallest part to the biggest machine. Once you learn that, fixing things becomes easier." The girls exchanged amazed glances. None of them had even considered how machines worked at that level. They were used to relying on technology without thinking much about it. Alex seemed to know his ship and tools inside and out, like they were old friends. As Alex continued working, the girls noticed something even more surprising. Not only did he have the skills to fix anything, but he also had an unusual calmness. No matter how many problems he found, he approached each one with the same patience and focus. It was like nothing could bother him. And that calmness spread to the others, making them feel safe. At one point, Leela, the youngest alien girl, worked up the courage to ask, "Commander Hayes, aren't you tired? You've been working for hours." Alex shook his head and grinned. "Not really. This is actually pretty relaxing for me." He paused, noticing their confused expressions, and added, "Back on Earth, I deal with a lot of intense situations. This, fixing the ship in the quiet of space, is a nice break for me." The girls could hardly believe it. They felt stressed just being stuck in space, and here was a human saying it was relaxing. Seeing their surprise, Alex decided to show them more of what he could do. He held up a small tool that looked strange to them, a thin rod with a bright, glowing tip. "This is a laser screwdriver," he explained. "It helps me fix tiny parts quickly." The alien girls leaned in, fascinated. They had never seen anything like it. Alex used the tool to adjust a small part in the engine, working so fast and skillfully that the girls couldn't keep up with his hands. In seconds, he had tightened a tiny screw, replaced a wire, and tested the part to make sure it was working perfectly. Era's eyes widened as she watched him. "You really do have surprising skills. No wonder they call your kind Deathworlders. You're not afraid of anything, are you?" Alex smiled but shook his head. "I wouldn't say that. Everyone feels fear. It's just about what you do with it. On Earth, we learn to push through it, to use it to stay focused." The girls were amazed at his words. To them, fear was something to run from, not something to use as strength. "Do you think we could learn to be like that?" asked Myra quietly. She was shy, but Alex's calm and steady presence gave her courage. Alex nodded. "Of course. You're already brave for handling this situation. You just need to keep that courage with you. Fixing ships, facing danger, all of that. It starts with believing you can." The girls felt inspired, their nervousness fading into something warmer, hope. Watching Alex work made them realize they had the power to face challenges too. They might not be Deathworlders, but they could still be strong. After a few hours, Alex had finally fixed every part he could. The ship was in the best shape it had been in for a long time. He wiped his hands and turned to the girls with a satisfied smile. "There," he said, "your ship should be in top condition now. I made a few adjustments, so it should run smoother than before." The girls couldn't contain their excitement. They thanked him over and over, their voices filled with gratitude and admiration. They had never met anyone like him. Someone who could work so calmly and skillfully. Someone who faced fear but didn't let it control him. Before he left, Alex gave them one last piece of advice. "Remember, you don't have to come from a death world to be brave. Courage is something anyone can find within themselves. Just keep learning and never give up." As he stepped back onto his ship, the girls watched him go with a mixture of awe and respect. They felt different now, stronger, more capable, and inspired by the surprising skill and courage of the human who had come to their rescue. And as his ship vanished into the stars, they knew they would carry his words with them, facing future challenges with a newfound bravery, just like the Deathworlder who had taught them to believe in themselves. The hard work begins. After Commander Alex Hayes left, the alien girls felt both inspired and anxious. Their ship was running again, but they realized they still had a lot to learn. Fixing the engine had been just one part of their problem. Now they had to maintain it, understand its systems, and handle future issues themselves. This thought felt overwhelming, but Alex's words echoed in their minds. Courage is something anyone can find within themselves. Era, the leader, gathered the group in the main control room. She looked at her friends, their faces a mix of excitement and worry. "All right, girls," she began, her voice steady. "We can't always rely on others to save us. Commander Hayes showed us what's possible, and now it's time for us to learn too. We need to understand this ship better." Myra, the shy one, looked around nervously. "But we don't know anything about engines or repairs. What if we make it worse?" Era smiled at her friend reassuringly. "We won't learn unless we try. And we'll start with the basics, just like Alex said." Leela, the youngest and most curious of the group, held up a data pad filled with technical manuals. "I downloaded all the guides he gave us," she said with a determined look. We can start reading and take it one step at a time." The girls agreed, although they were still a bit unsure. They divided up the tasks, each of them taking responsibility for different sections of the ship. Era chose the engine room, wanting to understand the heart of their ship, while Leela decided to study the wiring and circuits. Myra, despite her nervousness, picked the control systems, learning how to navigate and manage their ship's technology. The first few days were hard. The girls struggled to understand the technical terms and complex diagrams in the manuals. They often found themselves confused, and more than once, a mistake led to minor issues. Myra accidentally turned off the ship's main lights while trying to reprogram the navigation, causing a short blackout that left everyone in the dark for a few minutes. "Oh no, I didn't mean to do that," Myra gasped, embarrassed. Era quickly turned on a backup light, giving her friend a gentle smile. "It's okay, Myra. Mistakes are how we learn. Commander Hayes probably made mistakes too when he started. Let's fix this together." Slowly, the girls began to feel more confident. They spent hours reading, practicing, and testing each system. Every time they solved a small problem, their confidence grew a little more. They began to understand their ship, and it started to feel less like a mystery and more like something they could manage. One evening, as they were working together in the engine room, Leela paused to look at her friends. "You know, I didn't think we could do this. I was so scared after Commander Hayes left. But now, I think we're actually learning something." Era nodded, smiling. "That's the power of hard work, Layla. It may feel slow, but every bit counts. Alex showed us the path, but we're the ones walking it." The girls kept working, each discovery adding to their growing skills. They learned to fix small parts, check for any warning signs, and even run basic tests to make sure everything was functioning well. Era became particularly skilled at identifying problems in the engine room, while Layla's quick hands were perfect for handling delicate circuits and wires. Myra, though still shy, became better at understanding the control systems and even reprogrammed the lights correctly. Despite the challenges, the girls also found moments of fun. They laughed at each other's mistakes, shared snacks while reading the manuals, and told stories to keep each other's spirits high. They began to feel like a true team, bonded by their shared goal of mastering their ship. One day, while working on a tricky piece of wiring, Era paused and looked around at her friends. She remembered how scared they had been when the ship first broke down, feeling helpless and lost. But now, they were working with confidence, no longer relying on luck or hoping someone would rescue them. They had come a long way. "Girls," Era said, a proud smile on her face, "we're doing it. We're actually learning how to take care of our ship. We're not just passengers anymore. We're the crew." Her friends cheered, feeling a surge of pride. It was true. They were no longer helpless. They were gaining the skills they needed, and they knew they could handle any challenge that came their way. The ship was now in their hands. That night, as they sat in the main control room, tired but happy, Era made a promise to them all. "We'll keep learning, keep practicing. This is just the beginning. We have a lot more to understand, but together, we can handle anything. Alex taught us to believe in ourselves, and we'll make him proud." The girls nodded, their eyes shining with determination. They knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but they were ready for it. The hard work had only just begun, but they felt stronger than ever. They were no longer just alien girls stuck in space. They were a team, a crew, and together, they could face any danger the universe had to offer. And as they drifted off to sleep that night, they dreamed of the adventures yet to come, confident that they could handle whatever the stars threw their way. A big problem appears. Days passed, and the alien girls grew more comfortable with the ship's systems. Each had her own duties, and their confidence increased with each small success. However, just when everything seemed to be going well, an unexpected problem appeared. One evening, Era noticed a strange noise coming from the engine room, a low, rattling sound. She frowned, knowing that it wasn't normal. She had spent so much time in the engine room that she could recognize every hum and click. This sound was new and definitely not good. She called the others over, her face serious. "Girls, we might have a problem. There's a strange noise coming from the engine. I think something might be wrong." Myra and Leela exchanged worried glances. They had just started feeling confident, and the idea of a big problem made them nervous. "What do you think it is, Era?" Leela asked, her voice trembling slightly. Era shook her head. "I'm not sure. It could be a loose part, or maybe something more serious. But we need to check it out right away." They all hurried to the engine room, their hearts pounding. The rattling sound grew louder as they got closer, filling the room with a heavy, unsettling noise. Era grabbed her toolkit and knelt beside the engine, trying to trace the sound. "All right, stay calm, everyone," she said, trying to reassure them. "We've handled small problems before. Let's start by checking for anything obvious." The girls worked together, examining every part of the engine they could reach. Layla checked the wiring, Myra tested the control panel, and Era inspected the main components. But the noise persisted, getting louder and more alarming. After a few minutes, Myra looked up, her face pale. "Era, I think it's something deeper in the engine. Maybe something we can't see from here." Era felt a knot in her stomach. She knew Myra was right. This wasn't a simple problem they could solve by tightening a bolt or replacing a wire. It was something more serious, something beyond their current skills. "What do we do, Era?" Leela asked, her voice shaking. "What if the engine stops working? We'll be stranded out here." Era took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. She knew panicking wouldn't help. She thought of Commander Alex Hayes and remembered his calm, confident approach to challenges. They had faced problems before, and they could do it again. "First, let's not panic," she said firmly. "We need to think logically. Let's try to locate the exact source of the noise. It might give us a clue about what's wrong." The girls nodded, taking strength from Era's calm tone. They moved slowly around the engine, listening carefully and watching each part. Finally, Leela noticed something, a thin crack along one of the main support beams. The crack was small, but it was growing slowly with each vibration of the engine. "Look," Leela pointed, her voice full of alarm. "There's a crack. If it gets bigger, the whole engine might break down." Era's heart sank. This was a serious problem. They didn't have the tools or knowledge to fix something as major as a cracked support beam. It was beyond anything they had learned so far. "We can't fix this ourselves," Myra whispered, fear creeping into her voice. "If the engine breaks, we'll be completely stuck." Era knew they had to act fast. She thought about all the things Alex had taught them, about staying calm and using their courage. She wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. "All right, we might not be able to fix it, but maybe we can reinforce it," Era said, her voice determined. "If we can find something strong enough, we could brace the crack and stop it from spreading." The girls looked around, searching for anything that might work. They gathered metal rods, wires, and clamps, whatever they could find. Under Era's guidance, they carefully wrapped the cracked beam with layers of metal and reinforced it with clamps. It wasn't a perfect fix, but it was something. Once they finished, they all stepped back, holding their breath. The rattling sound had softened, but the engine was still making the worrying hum. Era knew their repair wouldn't last forever, but it might give them enough time to find real help. "What do we do now?" Leela asked, her eyes wide with fear. Era looked at her friends, her mind racing. They needed a plan, and quickly. They had to find someone who could help them repair the engine properly. "Let's check our communication systems," Era decided. "Maybe we can send a distress signal. If there's a ship nearby, they might hear us and come to help." The girls rushed to the communication room, hope filling their hearts. They powered up the systems and began sending out a signal, explaining their situation and asking for assistance. The silence that followed felt endless as they waited for a response. After what felt like hours, the communication screen flickered, and a faint voice crackled through the speakers. "This is Starship Orion. We received your distress signal. What is your location?" The girls gasped with relief, their fear melting into hope. They quickly gave their coordinates, explaining the problem with their engine. The voice on the other end replied calmly, "Hold tight. We're on our way. We'll be there within a few hours." Era and the others let out a collective sigh of relief. Help was coming. They had faced a big problem, and even though they couldn't solve it alone, they had done everything they could. Their hard work and courage had bought them time, and now rescue was on the way. As they waited for the Starship Orion, the girls sat together, exhausted but proud. They had faced their fears, worked as a team, and found a solution, even if it was only temporary. They realized that problems might get bigger, but so did their strength and determination. And as they looked out at the stars, they knew that with each challenge, they were becoming more than just passengers. They were becoming true explorers, ready to face whatever the universe had in store. New friends. The alien girls waited anxiously, staring out the main window as the Starship Orion grew closer. After their distress call, they knew help was coming, but they still felt a mix of relief and nervousness. They hadn't seen other people since Commander Hayes, and meeting a new crew felt both exciting and a little scary. When the Orion finally docked with their ship, the girls gathered by the airlock, waiting to greet their rescuers. The doors opened with a soft hiss, and a team of humans in blue and silver uniforms stepped through, looking around with friendly smiles. Their leader, a tall woman with short, dark hair, stepped forward and introduced herself. "Hello, I'm Captain Mara Jensen of the Starship Orion. We received your distress call. It's good to see you all are safe." Era, the leader of the alien girls, stepped forward and bowed slightly. "Thank you, Captain Jensen. I'm Era, and these are my friends, Mara and Leela. We had a serious problem with our engine, and we didn't know how to fix it completely. Your help means everything to us." Captain Jensen smiled warmly. "We're here to help, Era. Let's take a look at that engine and see what we can do." The human crew moved quickly, examining the engine and checking the temporary fix the girls had made. The girls watched as the engineers used advanced tools to scan the ship, impressed by how easily they worked together. The humans were calm and skilled, chatting as they worked, and their confidence was reassuring. After a short time, one of the engineers, a friendly man named Dan, turned to Era and her friends with a grin. "You girls did a great job holding this engine together. Not many would have thought to reinforce a cracked beam like that. You saved yourselves a lot of trouble." Myra blushed, feeling proud but shy. "We just did what we could. Commander Hayes taught us a bit about repairs, but we still have a lot to learn." Dan chuckled. "Learning never ends, trust me. Even we humans are always finding new things to understand. But you girls have shown some real courage and clever thinking. That's what matters out here in space." Captain Jensen and her crew worked efficiently, replacing the cracked part and performing a full check of the engine to make sure everything was running smoothly. Era, Myra, and Leela watched, fascinated by the advanced tools and technology the humans used. They realized just how much more they had to learn, but instead of feeling discouraged, they felt motivated. When the repairs were complete, Captain Jensen gathered her team and looked at the alien girls with a friendly smile. "Your ship is in good shape now. We fixed the crack and reinforced a few other parts. You should be able to travel safely again." Era felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. "Thank you, Captain Jensen. We don't have much to offer, but we're so grateful for your help. We wouldn't have made it without you." Captain Jensen shook her head. "No need to thank us. Out here in space, we look out for each other. One day, you might be the ones helping someone else. Besides, I'm impressed by your bravery. You've shown true strength, and that's what matters most." The girls felt a sense of pride and happiness. They had been scared and unsure, but they had managed to hold on, learn new skills, and find the courage to ask for help. Meeting the crew of the Orion made them realize they weren't alone in the vastness of space. There were others, like them, who understood the importance of unity and friendship. Before leaving, Captain Jensen offered them a gift, a small device that contained repair manuals and basic engineering tips. This will help you with future repairs. Just remember, never be afraid to ask for help. We're all explorers out here, and we need each other. Leela clutched the device with wide eyes. Thank you. This will be so useful. We'll study it and keep getting better. The girls waved goodbye to their new friends, watching as the crew of the Orion returned to their ship. They felt a sense of sadness as the airlock doors closed, but also a deep sense of gratitude. They had made new friends, ones who had shown them kindness and support when they needed it most. As the Orion detached and drifted away, Era turned to her friends, her eyes shining. We have a lot to work on, but we're not alone. There are people out there who care, who will help if we need it, and one day, maybe we'll be the ones helping others. Myra and Leela nodded, feeling the same surge of hope and determination. Their journey wasn't over, and there would be challenges ahead, but they felt stronger, more prepared, and more confident. They had friends out there in the universe, and that made all the difference. As they powered up their ship, the girls couldn't help but smile. They were no longer just alien girls lost in space. They were explorers, part of a larger community of adventurers. And they knew, with each new day, they would continue to grow, learn, and make more friends among the stars. With their ship fully repaired and their spirits lifted, they set their course forward, ready to embrace the endless possibilities of space. Together, they felt they could handle anything that came their way. Goodbye, brave human. The days after the Starship Orion's visit were filled with activity. The girls, now more confident and knowledgeable about their ship's systems, continued to improve and work together. Ira, Myra, and Leela took turns studying the repair manuals Captain Jensen had given them, practicing small fixes, and learning new techniques. They knew that one day they might be the ones helping others, just like the humans had helped them. But despite all the progress, something weighed heavily on Ira's heart. There was still a piece of their journey that had yet to be addressed. The brave human who had been with them from the very beginning, the one who had saved them in the first place, Commander Hayes. Ira had not seen him since the day he left. He had promised to come back to check on them, but that had been a few weeks ago. His absence left a strange feeling of emptiness in the ship. As much as she appreciated the help from Captain Jensen and the crew of the Orion, she couldn't help but feel that something important was still missing. One evening, as the girls worked together in the main room, Era finally spoke up. "Do you think Commander Hayes will come back to see us?" Her voice was soft, tinged with longing. Myra and Leela looked up at her. They had been thinking the same thing, but hadn't spoken it aloud. "I hope so," Myra said, her voice gentle. "He was kind to us, and we owe him so much. I miss him. I think we all do." Leela nodded. "I never thought I'd miss a human, but he was different. He treated us like equals, not just aliens." Era felt the same way. Commander Hayes had been more than just a rescuer. He had been a friend, the first human to show them real kindness, not out of duty, but out of genuine care. They had shared stories, laughed together, and even learned from one another. It felt strange to think they might never see him again. "I think we should send him a message," Era said, determination growing in her voice. "We've learned so much from him. We should thank him properly." The girls agreed, and together they worked on a message, a simple but heartfelt one, expressing their gratitude and telling him how much they missed him. After finishing the message, Era stood by the communication console, hesitating for just a moment. "Are you sure we want to send this?" Leela asked, her eyes wide with concern. "What if he's busy with something important? What if he's moved on?" Era looked at her friends and smiled softly. "It doesn't matter. He'll know we're thinking of him, And maybe it will make him come back. With a deep breath, Era pressed the send button. The message was sent into the vastness of space, carried by signals and stars. Now, all they could do was wait. Days passed, and the girls returned to their routine, keeping busy with repairs, studying, and exploring the ship. It was a good distraction, but the empty feeling still lingered. Each day, they would look out at the stars, wondering if their message had reached Commander Hayes and if he would ever come back. Then, one morning, as they were finishing breakfast, the communication console suddenly flickered to life. The girls rushed over, their hearts pounding. A familiar voice came through the speaker, clear, warm, and filled with that same confidence they had missed so much. "This is Commander Hayes," the voice said. "I received your message. I'm glad to hear you girls are doing well. I've been busy, but I promised I'd check on you, didn't I? I'm coming to visit. Hang tight." Era's eyes filled with tears of joy. The others looked at each other, grinning from ear to ear. They couldn't believe it. Commander Hayes was coming back. He had heard their message, and he was coming to see them. The next few hours were filled with excitement and anticipation. The girls couldn't stop talking about the commander, wondering how he had been, what he had been doing, and what it would feel like to see him again. They prepared their ship, making sure everything was in order, and waited eagerly for his arrival. As the hours passed, a familiar ship appeared on their radar. It was the same small shuttle they had seen before, the one that Commander Hayes had used when he first arrived to rescue them. The girls couldn't contain their excitement. They rushed to the airlock to greet him. When the doors opened, there he was, Commander Alex Hayes, standing tall in his familiar uniform, smiling as he stepped into the room. Era couldn't help but run toward him, and the others followed. For a moment, they stood there, unsure what to say, but feeling the warmth of their reunion. "You girls look great," Commander Hayes said with a laugh. "I see you've been busy. The ship looks much better than the last time I saw it." Era's heart swelled. "We've learned so much, and we owe it all to you." Commander Hayes shook his head, his smile softening. "No, you did this. You all worked hard. I just gave you the tools to help yourselves, and it's been amazing to see how far you've come." The girls looked at him with admiration and gratitude. For the first time since they had met him, they didn't feel like strangers. They were all part of something bigger now, part of the same adventure, exploring the vast universe together. But as the time passed, Era knew that their paths were different now. Commander Hayes had a life beyond their small ship, and though they had shared many memories, they couldn't keep him forever. With a heavy heart, Era stepped forward. "Commander, we've learned so much from you, but we know you have to move on. We won't forget what you did for us." Commander Hayes smiled, understanding what she meant. "I'll never forget you girls either. You've been like family to me. But remember, you're stronger now. You don't need me anymore. You've got this, and I'll always be just a message away." The girls felt a bittersweet ache in their hearts as they said their goodbyes. They had come so far together, but now it was time for Commander Hayes to continue his journey. As he boarded his shuttle and waved one last time, Era whispered to herself, "Goodbye, brave human. Thank you for everything." And as the shuttle disappeared into the stars, the girls felt a deep sense of pride. They had learned, they had grown, and they were ready to face whatever came next, together.